Pentakill. Sounds like a Halloween decoration. Battery operated Halloween. Okay, so there's some awesome stuff that's been submitted into the Critique Hour critique community. Sorry, super slurp. If you guys want your stuff seen and critiqued and looked at, please submit it here. This is where I choose stuff for viewing. I sometimes write critiques as well as take them. Very nice. Very, very nice nose. Look at that nose. You just need a little bit more darkness here in the deepest parts and develop the cave a little bit more so it feels like a real cave. But nice nose. So this is where I'm going to be choosing some stuff. If we have some time today, I'll push it to 6:30. If not, it will be just for 6 o'clock. Let us begin. What we have here is three images. What we have here are three images. I don't know. I picked them up from the critique queue. So please, if you want your stuff critiqued, please go to the critique community. I will be looking at stuff there. For this piece, this is beautiful, but there is something bothering me about it. And sometimes when we're trying to choose a single frame from a series of frames of movement, we want to choose the frame that is the best composed. If this was a shot in the middle of a movie and he's traveling down the screen, what would happen is we would wait for him to be centralized in the screen and then take the picture. All right, but what's happened is you took the picture too soon in his movement down through the forest. So he doesn't, it's going to work to make him feel emerging, like he's emerging, but look up here, it's not as dark as it should be. So what you have to do is, if you don't want to crop him, if you want to leave him above in this horizon line, which is pretty boring horizon line, you kind of either want to throw it in the center, or you want to make him feel big and throwing it up here and introducing some perspective. But if you just want to keep this the way it is, I recommend closing off the top of the canvas. If you're looking for a way forward out of this painterly level that you're in and you want to complete it a little bit, you got to close this top forward because the light seems to be coming in on an angle. Next most important thing is casting some shadows. So this little horn here, this horn needs to cast a shadow, and we have to ask ourselves in which direction is this shadow being cast. So is it going to be this kind of direction and the light is coming on a really severe angle, or is it going to be this kind of direction where the shadow travels across? I think the more dramatic one. And you think you have some of it a little bit in there, but you just haven't sharpened it enough. And I think casting that shadow would be a really, really good idea. And we're going to be casting that same shadow everywhere else as well. So I'm going to get into multiply. See what that did? Instantly, we kind of see another cast shadow here. This is a cast shadow of another adjacent tree. And we're kind of just looking at it. Another cast shadow that would be a really, really good addition to this composition is breaking this big piece of white you have here. You have a massive piece of white that you need to cut in half because it's kind of just working as a big piece of white, challenging him as the detail. When you have black pieces surrounding one white piece, that one white piece becomes the focal point. So what you have to do is close that off a little bit. It gets feathered and blurrier as it goes out. And I'll show you the before and after. This is a beautiful piece. You see how this area goes down, and this area raises up again. So this shadow becomes fuzzier and brighter as it goes up. It cannot stay the same sharpness. Oopsie, that's too much. Shrink my brush. And everywhere else that is facing the light source, so areas that are looking directly at the light source, some of this is in front, like escaping the shadow that it's in. So the side of this bark should be illuminated, and we have some more sharpness. So you have that piece. I'm just going to leave that white. I'm not really going to spend time detailing it. Oh, right, it's on multiply. That's why I was doing that. So let me go all the way back. Just like this. So that little piece of wood is sticking out. That's what she said. And what's next is more cast shadows, minor cast shadows. So blame Michael Scott. It's not my fault. This little piece here. It's in a cast shadow area, but it's slightly escaping the cast shadow of the head, so there's going to be a little bit of relief right along here where this cast shadow ends off. So that's where we bring in another piece of light, and it's creating this really, really pretty dynamic here between the cast shadows. And now this object really feels like it's in space, and not just that, it's emerging out of the shadows. So now his position in the composition isn't so annoying anymore. I mean, he's the most detailed object, but he's tucked all the way up here, and all this not important foreground blur, darkness, flooded in shadow, lack of detail area is all taking up all this space here, almost half of the canvas. So I know it's still painterly, I know it's still working, but remember, you need to either bring a POI in here, maybe a little boy running away and this guy's like, no, help me, or just cut the canvas completely. Okay, what's next is the trees. We just have to keep reinforcing the strength. If we react to the light with objects and we don't with small objects, and we don't really react to the light with large objects, the light source becomes confused because the light source should touch the large objects before it touches the smaller objects. So that's why we have to make sure the trees get their own light as well, or else it'll look really, really weird. And maybe the trees have their own barks and stuff, so maybe they have, my phone needs to shut up. Maybe the trees have their own little branches here and there. I'm going to use this brush. Like that. But this whole area at the top needs to slowly recede into shadow. Really, really important that we're framing. And then one last little bit here. We're just adding continuous response by large objects to the light source, or else the light source will not seem like a legitimate light source. Okay? So I know it's all well and good to work with painterly stuff and develop your image, but in your painterly, you're still working with the form. You're not using any lines, are you? So what's happening is you have to start responding to the large pieces with your large brush. That's what happens with painterly. You're just responding to the large stuff. You're ignoring the small stuff. So trust me when I tell you, cast shadow is large stuff. Say, oh, that's detail. So you might respond to my critique and say, that was detail stuff I was going to do later. No, it's not. It's the large stuff that you have to do now. Okay? You don't leave cast shadows for later. That's the fundamental. That's where the form is. That's where the cube is. That's where the light environment is. All of those are fundamentals you can't ignore. Okay, so I'm assuming this is like a smoother kind of material on his horn, so I'm going to give it a better response to the light source, something similar to that. And remember, objects of similar material will have the same kind of contrast on them. Everyone write that back to me. So I'll show you what this did for the environment. It really set it up. It changed the image completely, especially closing this all off in shadow at the top. Then mid-tone highlights. Oops, I'm still in. So I'm just closing off the top of the canvas into shadow, but do you see how high up he's pushed? It kind of just feels like he's really disappearing. So I want to make it seem like he's emerging with a vengeance. And areas of highlight where the light is shining really, really strong. These are areas that need to be exaggerated. So this is probably in the way of this. This is completely exposed to it. So this might get some. And do you want to know where you learn how to cast shadows? Form studies. Yay! Form studies are where you go to learn cast shadows. Just studying form for form's sake constantly keeps you thinking about cast shadows and where they sit. Probably going to look like that. And everything feels more realistic, and I'll show you the before and after, what's happened to this environment. I haven't touched the detail, I haven't gone into liquify, and we've created such an environment with a couple of little strokes here and there that you could have thought about as you were painting. And this is all large brush, early first 30 minutes kind of info you need to be adding to your painting. Same material, same value range. So if you've got teeth and you've got bones, you've got the same material. So these teeth here all need their own cast shadows, and they need to have their own sort of a highlight range similar to the bone structure. So these areas are all similar to each other. So I'm going to cast some teeth, and this is how we start introducing detail. Okay, jokes. So the potential of highlight and contrast for the teeth is going to be the same for the bones. The teeth are a little bit more wet, so they're going to have a specular potential to them, but it's still generally the same. So I'm going to use my handy dandy brush and just bring that contrast all the way up, just on a little bit. Maybe there's like another shadow on that bit of the bone structure. Actually, this one is further away, so it wouldn't be that bright. So it is very mathematical. The way to make sure all of the cast shadows are even, so what are cast shadows and what do we do with them? Cast shadows are one object in front of another, casting its shadow on that object. So the shadow that it casts assumes the shape of object number 1 on object number 2. When you have a universal light source, so the sunlight, all cast shadows have a similar angle because the light travels in straight lines. But the sun is so far away from us, all the lines that it touches on the earth are all straight because we're just not big enough to feel the curve and the distance between each ray, or each general, I guess, keyframe of light rays. So the earth gets generally straight ones. So when we have, just take it by default, when you're outside, other than sunset kind of does its own little thing if there's enough of a distance, but in a singular, like a couple meters squared of distance, all the cast shadows are going to have the same angle to them. So when you cut them off on an object, they all have the same angle. Just like that. That's kind of how you eyeball it. Okay? And this and this, and then when these hit the floor, they just assume the shape. So cast shadows assume the shape of the object they are on. So if the object's surface is wobbly, the cast shadow will wobble. And this is object B. If object A is a triangle, the shadow will be triangular. Object A is a triangle. The shadow will be triangular, but it will move along the contours of object B. That's the rule, and it will move all on consistent lines. Okay? All these lines are parallel. Object B's contour, so see how the shadow curves up, because that's what the ground does. The ground is object B. And object A's shape, the tree on the ground, that's the shape that this takes. So this isn't, some crazy shadow, it just takes the shape of the long tree. Alright, so lots of rules here, but that's pretty much all you have to know what to do with shadows. And there's really nothing useful about me listing out the rules to you unless you're applying them in a form study. Okay? Shadows before highlights, absolutely. You don't put highlights in until you've established some good long shadows that are really forming the structure and the form. And the cube and the largest pieces. Never work small to large, and painterly work large to small. That's why we have to respond to the light source with the large objects and then break that object into smaller pieces. Object A is Illuminati. Yeah, those are the fundamentals, and they're not fundamentals in art, and they're not specific to art. They are physics, so it's physics. Love it. Oh, physics, I love physics. That's what you're supposed to be saying. The more you associate a different school of thought with your art journey, the more your art journey will be narrated by real knowledge or a real discourse. And physics is a real pool of knowledge because it's It's just it's a it's facts for the sake of facts. So you want to do that. You want to bring that into your image because it'll look more realistic. That way, don't depend on wonky proportions or your own rendition of how physics works in light. You're not going to invent better physics than what's out there. So just remember these fundamentals. I'm going to go to filter, sharpen, and sharp mask, just because of the soft brush that I used, but I did use lasso. And let's take a look at what happened. Before, after. There's an environment. Before, after. Now that tree is in front of him. Now he's behind that tree. Now there's a... Here, let me lighten this shadow up. It's too dark. Whoops, that's too much. Because it recedes. I need some more of a cut through. Okay, so before there was no light presence, everything was just generally, I mean, you don't want to paint fog every time. I know this is realistic, this can happen, but it can happen when there's lots of diffused light, maybe overcast, lots of just bounce light. That's all really that's illuminating the world. There isn't one sharp source, and that happens when the sky is blue and there's a sun and the shadows are crisp. When you have, a little bit overcast or a little bit of cloud, that's the best time to take photos because the shadows aren't too large, and so you don't have a flood of the form all gone. But when you're dealing with drama just like this, you want that. You want to have something. You want to respond to it. After that, you just bring in the hot spots where you want the brightest points to be. And then you add in color, continue the detail. But this is the stuff that you have to be doing when it comes to the early stages, when the paint early stages. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Oh, welcome, Enrique. You found my channel 5 minutes ago. I always hear myself go whoa before with the before and after. Oh, thank you, Kaniko. No, physics loves you too. Don't say that. Just found your channel last night. It's 1 a.m. here in South Africa. I have learned so much from you. I'm so happy, Kaniko. Yeah, learning is the best. 12111 exclamation mark. Okay. Okay. On to the next image. So flatten. Okay, we have this beautifully rendered face. This a little bit, we've got you have the grayscale, which is wonderful, and you've got a couple proportion issues we'll talk about. But the red is really, really strong. It's like the color to mess with if you're working in black and white. So that's always the color to go with. But if we go into grayscale, we want to make sure that red, it isn't brighter than the focal point. The rules are still the same. And that red is bringing in a lot of attention. So color comes in both brightness and its hue. Hue also demands attention. And if it's the only area that's colored, my eyes aren't going here. My eyes are here. It's just like, whoa, look at all this info. My eyes have more intrigue and oh, my eyes are being entertained. Eyes are vain. They like to be entertained. That's where they're going to go. They're going to go to the biggest, brightest, flashiest thing. And that's where they're going to look. Even if you spend all this beautiful time messing with this and rendering this, this is where the eye will go. So if that's what you want to do to your painting, by all means do it. But I recommend bringing this down just a tad and erasing areas that are true brightness. So over here. And besides, you don't need all that red to show off the fact that it's red. I mean, it's black and white. It's red versus black and it's a color versus grayscale. The color is going to win. So you don't have to have, boom, all of that crazy saturation for me to get the fact that, yes, it's red. So bring that down a little bit. You know these big pieces here, these like collected pieces of magma? These little pieces, that's where you want to bring in that sharpness and that sudden explosion of color. But only in small pieces. Give us some relief. Don't overwhelm our eyes because we're not going to be looking at anything else. And then if it really is an area that's bright that you want to have an attention drawn to, is that really something you want to throw in the lower part of the canvas? So if you want attention to be shared between both the face and this, you're going to have to extend the canvas a little bit. Give us some breathing room. Because if you're going to throw the POI down here and we're running out of image, we're running out of painting, our eye is going to be extremely sad because we're not having anything over here to support the fact that the focal point is down here. The focal point should never be thrown to the bottom. You never do that with the focal point. The focal point is why you're painting. The focal point is why you're here. What your idea is. The focal point is your idea. We don't throw our idea to the bottom of the screen. Alright, so there's that, and then we have some anatomy issues. This is probably an example of what happens when we don't use lines to sort of organize our canvas. We really have to be very, very careful. So with this lip corner, I'm thinking about the eyes and the line established by the eye. So we're seeing a line here, a line of parallel here. We would see the next nostril. She's kind of looking down at us. The camera is below her head. It's not in front of her. We would see the next nostril on this side. Then we would see an alignment of the Cupid's bow with this straight line. We'll see the alignment of the Cupid's bow both on the lip and on the edge of the lip. And her face is fine, but we would see a little bit more of the bulge of the chin. And this eye, it's just a simple liquefy movement. It's just bring that down right there, because that was all the way up there, deviated completely and utterly outside of this line of symmetry. There is symmetry on the face. Fight it or not, there's symmetry on the face. You cannot paint a face without establishing symmetry. There is symmetry even on the skeletal level. Look at the skeleton, and the skeleton is symmetrical. Symmetry is the blueprints on which we were drawn on. We were drawn on symmetry. So you cannot ignore the fact that that's the simple geometry involved in painting a face. Alright, so you can hide her eye away behind the hair, but it still needs to be, see the amount of white visible here, and this is the further eye. This should be more than this eye. I mean, the amount of compression here, this should be wider in all aspects, so there should be more pupil and less white here. Here should be more, here should be less. And I just need to zoom out. Please always and just never paint eyebrows with single brush, like with a 2-pixel width brush. Never do that. That's too much detail. It's overwhelming, and it does not look like real hair. Our eyes don't see every single hair. They see a jumbling of that. They see like a combination of all that. We see a pattern, a texture. We don't see the hair. So down here, all of this should fade into shadow. And up here, we should have detail, relief, and that's it. The other side of that nostril will be visible. She's got quite a strong nose, so I'm just going to grab this, paste, flip horizontal, shrink, and compress. Shrinking only because I don't have time to paint it. I'm trying to balance that. Just trying to get the other side to have a nostril too. Some of that nostril will be hidden. But you see this line, it's below the nostril, so that means some of the other nostril will be visible. It's not like a crazy perspective 3/4 view, it's a very simple 3/4 view. So it seemed a little empty before, and we're just adding that extra shadow to reinforce the presence of that nostril. Let me get lighter. Probably lower it. Nope, not lower it. And I'll show you the before and after now. We can see the issues in the proportions of the face. So let's look at the proportions of the face first. Lasso, transform. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Before, after, before, after. Do you see how far away that eye was? And if you want her eyes to be that elongated on one side, you have to make it symmetrical on both. So if you want her eye to look like this, you've got to pull this one up too and make it make sense and keep it spherical. Okay, and then complete before. See that brightness? It was so intense. And let me see if I can use the crop first. And after. So before, after, and then this is after. This is for brightness and for proportion. Oh, no, it's not for brightness. It's just for proportion. Before, after the proportion change, and then before and after for the entire changes. See how bright that was? It was not letting me look at the rest of the image. Okay, and again with cast shadows, you have some great opportunity to cast some shadows. So if you were trying to add in some sort of mystery to her, there you have some really awesome opportunities here. You have that sharp cast shadow of the neck, and it's behind the hair, and yet you have no cast shadow on the rest of the body. How does that work? Okay, so we need to throw in some of these cast shadows. Just like this. I can't believe that my classes have reached people from all over the world. I mean, like, I forget it's YouTube. I always expect Americans. And then I get people from South Africa, from Germany, from England, from... I don't know. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm just really grateful I started this. But let's bring in these cast shadows. Decrease the opacity. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And then start erasing. So the further pieces are less sharp. Okay, the top of this nose should be brighter. This is a little brighter. This might get some relief here. And then as diffuse travels, it'll correct all the excess shadow on this side. But we just want this sharpness here. It really brings in that extra detail. And the side of the nose that you have here is outlined. It's not good. Carry that shade all the way there. Brazil, UK, Mars, Hungary, California. I can't. Hungary. Wow. I don't even know where to place that on a map. I think it's like near Croatia. I'm not a very smart person. Okay, so the top of this nose needs to be a little brighter, a little more sculpted because it's facing the light source. And this little line here needs to disappear. It needs to go bye-bye. It needs to go on sabbatical. I need to go on sabbatical. I need to get hired and then by university and then go on sabbatical. I'd love to do that. You know, get paid. Just go like write. I'm just gonna go write my book. I need to finish my book actually. Okay, so I'm just trying to push this all the way. That line really, really, really flattened out the nose. That nose is the brightest, furthest, and her nose is quite large too, so it needs to be matched with the rest of the image. And since her hair is sort of shrouding or something, it kind of recedes the face into the hair. Same with the neck, because it's kind of just really, really beside the face, so it's going to work as like a hood, and then a cast shadow is where it starts off as, and then it turns into a recession, into the depression between the hair. Same with over here. Ever so gently you want to sculpt that hair. Her hair is really all over her face, so don't forget that. Her eyeball, Needs some shadows on it. Same with this one. A cast shadow on this eyeball here. And the brightness that we see here, we might see on this side. Just along the side. Just like this. I'm just blending that now. And the lip, you kind of have it outlined. Be careful with that. You want to just create a shadow. Like, remember your dark spots. Okay, so that's kind of it. So before, see how the nose is outlined, and then after, the nose is way less outlined. The nose could use highlights too. It could use some dodge right along the sides. It's the furthest moving object outside, like it's the highest altitude, so it'll warrant some really, really strong highlights just around here. You see, it's not a good idea to keep the line there. It just won't look natural. So before, after. Okay, so that's it for this piece. I hope you learned something from this. If you want your paint overs back, please message me on Facebook. I think all the links are available there on my channel page, but message me on Facebook, and I'll send you the paint overs. Yep, I agree. Just listening to her critique has improved my work. That's good. Yeah, repetition helps. And keep doing it on the shoulders and neck, or will it confuse the focal points? No, the shoulders and neck are fine. I wasn't even looking at them as I was looking at the painting. My eyes didn't even go there. Those are just like secondary, non-important props. The props are her face and her necklace, her hair, and everything else was just secondary, just so that it's not a floating head. Our eyes are not going to go there. Our eyes are never going to focus on the hair and the shoulders. They're going to focus on the necklace, and then they're going to press next into the next painting that's coming up in the people's list. So you just got to capture people's attention by your command over form. That's how you improve the composition and presentation of your painting. Don't add any excess highlights outside of the image. If the shoulders are touching the outside of the image, don't bother with them. Yeah, you look around the canvas now. It's breathing room. It really does not mention her tone of voice is pleasant to listen to, so you're less likely to not pay attention. What? Not to mention her tone. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying my voice is boring. Oh, I'm happy it's soothing. Imagine if it was like, imagine if I talk like this. Okay, guys, so next up is this owl. I feel like there needs to be more light presence, so maybe bring in some shadows or dust to capture the rays of light. Okay, no, I'm gonna do that. We need to cut this canvas in half. There's too much going on. If this was a scene in a movie and I was a director, I'd be like, yo, somebody get me some shadows because I need to cut this off. We're not looking at him. So let's do this. We did a lot of framing today, so I guess that's going to be the title of the critique hour. How to frame canvas with Istebrak. Alright, so I'm getting this, and I'm just going to keep framing the canvas, getting darker and darker around the edges. Is this spinny wheel thing important? No, he is. He's standing in front of the light. So I'm just gonna close that off. This is even blurry, and I've even blurred this. Any area which you find justified to blur is an area where it is not important. So what we need to do now is decide, are we going to cut the canvas this way, or cut the canvas this way, or cut the canvas this way? So it definitely needs to be an angle because the angle itself is got a Dutch angle, I think that's what it's called. And so after that, what happens is a silhouette. A silhouette happens. This is starting to look more like a ferret face than an owl face. You want an owl face, you want an owl look, my recommendation is this. So remember, you don't have to take every one of my pieces of advice, but this is something I definitely recommend. We need to see the owl. We need to see the owl feeling. And I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Because I'm not getting owl, I'm getting ferret. And when I do this, I feel owl. So owl in a barn or something looking down in this weird angle, I feel threatened. But if he's squinting, it's like he can't see me and I can't see him. He's like, who's that over there? And I'm like, who's that over there? I was like, why is he squinting? Is that a ferret? We want to see bold, bold, bold everything. So bold eyes. If you get the chance to do owl, go all the way. You want to quote me on something? Go owl all the way. Go full owl, okay? That means that if you're gonna try to find a single kind of owl look, go for the traditional owl look because don't test your audience. Your audience doesn't recognize all the expressions of an owl. Our audience, I'm so sorry, is dumb. I'm dumb. I'm the audience. I'm gonna go straight for the trope. So I'm gonna be like, okay, this doesn't feel like an owl because I'm not getting that big eye thing. So you want to captivate your audience and speak owl. This is what you have to do. Before it was like, what's that over there? What is it? No, it's an owl. Mysterious, hidden behind its proportions, and very, very scary. And that's the mood, right? Is that not the mood? So this eye needs to be a little bigger. Okay. No, Lotus, because his eyes are never going to be cute. And he's an animal. People who like animals are going to think they're cute. So if you shrink his eyes, you're going to give another anatomy. You're going to give more anatomy. Owls, whether they like it or not, have big eyes. So Google owl. The image you're going to get first is the owl with the big eye. You're going to get the complete circle version of the owl, no matter the species or the brand. No matter the species of owl. Is that what the term is? Where's that freaky owl that was from the fourth kind? Oh my god. Jesus, this is the reference you could have used. Oh my god, imagine having used this reference with his head tilted all the way back. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this all the way. Let me keep this reference beside me because I think that's going to add to that macabre that you're going for. Alright, so let's see how this son of a... He's like, his chin is right above his shoulder. I don't know, can I get away with this? He kind of feels like he's haunched. He's like ready to kick your ass over here. I kind of like this one. Maybe a little bit of both. Nah, yours is better. Never mind. Okay, so after that's done, we get the owl back. Sorry about that intermission. I think I'm going to complete the owl again and just make the beak the darkest in the area. So those little bits on either side, I'm going to lighten them up. Okay? No, but I really wanted to use that weird owl, like, because you had that golden ratio with that owl doing that. That would have looked really cool in this composition. Maybe if we flip the owl and leave the background the way it is, because then you're doing this, and then you're doing this spiral. That's really beautiful. Creating all those perpendiculars. And then you've got the owl's eyes. And these, yeah. Anyway, the light needs to be the brightest object in the image. There's light coming through. So that's the moon, right? The moon isn't going to be visible. Like, it's not going to be that sharp. You have everything. The moon has all the obstacles in front of it. It's not going to be that sharp in the camera or the eyes seeing it. Eyes are going to see a very blurry version of the moon. The moon as the light source in the darkest hours of the night are going to blur edges. So these edges are going to be blurred. So what you do is you do it in levels. You do the large brush, the small brush, the smallest brush, right towards the brightest, hottest part of the moon, right here, and that gets blurred. The next thing you do is what I said earlier in my sort of California girl voice, is the rays. So this place is probably really dusty. And so what happens is the light comes through and is caught in the dust, and that dust reveals the straight lines of the light sources I was mentioning earlier. But who's in the way of all that light? The owl. So we have to give him a silhouette. When you have one object in front of another, in front of the light source, what happens is that, and you're behind that object, you will see a silhouette because you'll be looking at the dark side of that object. Blur, Gaussian blur. Sorry, I don't have time to blend. I'm just going to blend this. I'm going to make it a little sharper the closer it gets to the window. So this is the dust in the air allowing us to see this. And there's going to be minor interruptions. You might want to do something like, random. It doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. It can be just random stuff in the way. But as it hits him, maybe his head is in almost a complete silhouette. You erase everything near his head over here. So some of him is in cast shadow and some of him isn't. And you just have to find those dark spots. And not just that, his whole face is going to be in shadow. So I'm going to burn the midtones or the highlights on Dodge tool. Okay, just in levels. It's okay, we will still see. Trust me, don't worry. Oh no, she's burning the face I painted. It's the most detailed area in the whole face. Don't worry, because he is still the focal point. Everything else is pointing to him. So you gotta let everything work together a little bit. You can't always depend on the detail and then illuminating out of nowhere. Some phantom light comes in and illuminates this guy, even though he's in a perfect cast shadow. What happens next is the rim light on the fur. There's going to be some light captured on his fur from that light, so there's subsurface scattering. By the way, I love these finished pieces you guys are doing. Have some courage. Send them in for Critique Hour. Being able to catch these tiny little mistakes is really, really awesome because it kind of changes the way people paint. And like seeing someone who's finished something completely, we're seeing the full extent of their skill. So it's like a diagnostic, and I think that's really, really useful. So anywhere where there's an expanse, like a lot of rays, there's going to be a little bit extra rim light. Just on this edge of his face more. And I'll erase away what I don't want in a second. I just love cast shadows, and I just love light. It's just so pretty. I'm gonna burn this whole area here because it's in a silhouette. So he's in that point where he's running away, and the little girl's like, "No, don't leave, mister." And she can barely see him, so it's perfect drama. It's perfect presentation. It's cinematic. And you can still look. The face is still one of the most important spots in the painting. So it's okay to darken him. You have to darken around the fact that he's in a light source. So you respect the light source first, not the character. So what I'm going to do is go back before I started, before I lassoed. So that's before, and that's after, and I'm going to erase away what I don't want. So bring my opacity all the way down. Kind of just dim this out. Oop, no, I don't want to do that. I want to kind of just make this not as bright because there are no light rays directly on that. It's just all in this area. And I want to blur this out because the shadow is controlling the rest of the image. And then flatten that. And because this is the area where there is the light, I'll have to just somehow frame this image. So I'm gonna actually frame it with some shadows. And then I'm gonna do something daring and just bring down all the contrast. It's gonna add even more drama. image adjustments, just go straight to the contrast. Okay, so all that's left now is some basic architectural proportion. You've got this that isn't perfect with the symmetry of the perspective. So this line, the line of this has to be parallel with the line of this. Oopsie. This, because that's just simple architecture. So that's kind of wonky. That's throwing everything off because that's where the light source is coming from. So you're gonna have to make this perfectly straight. And this. And I encourage you guys to take these corrections and actually apply them. I think they'll change your gallery. Your gallery will really benefit from this. So the idea is amazing. You're a writer. It's just that your proportions are a little bit off, and the cinematics are a little bit off, and the lighting is off, and the physics is off. So it's getting harder and harder to appreciate the mood you're trying to write. So I'm just trying to make that straight. Everything else seems to be okay. And blur that, get that out of the way, get that out of the way, blur the edges here where the light is coming in. And maybe you want to throw the character in here. It's like, no, Mr. Owl, please don't leave. But how would he fit through this window? So maybe you want to like add an opening or something. Or maybe he's trying to run away and he's cornered. He thought it was a window he could go through. And the little girl's like, please, mister. Okay. So, before, after. Okay. Moderately lit room. It's like a lit basement. You know, you can see everything. Not much drama. I'd be freaked out if my basement was perfectly lit and I saw this creature in there. I'd be freaked the fuck out. If it was enough shadow in there and I saw him, I'd give it like, some doubt first. But if there's like no shadows and I'm looking at the evil creature in my basement and it's perfectly lit with fluorescent lights, I'd freak out more because it's just like there's no chance to doubt there's a creature in your basement. But anyways, for storytelling, this is something you want to do. Yeah, I touched on that perspective. The ladder, I don't think the ladder needs all that much work. I think just because it hits this area here, it needs just a little bit of sharpness. But I don't want to give it like, see now I've accidentally outlined it. I don't want to do that. I want to keep the attention to here. I'm not noticing the ladder. Alright, it's giving me a line of sight. Ladder goes this way. This dude just traveled up it. He's trying to leave this way. The light's traveling down. Beautiful, beautiful line of sight. You might want to throw a couple of feathers here and there, just where he ran away. And what he's left behind. Before, after. And did you see how it looked like a ferret or another animal with smaller eyes? You need that big eye. That's what happens. Elena says, Istebrak, been looking at your videos all week. Very helpful and seen a change in a painting just after watching a few videos. So thank you. You're very, very welcome. It's like something you would see for League of Legends character concept. Yeah, it is a very cool idea. Oh, the artist commented above. The fire girl one with the magic. Oh, Annie. Fucking hate her. Ladder needs some work. Who's... Oh, Test Vision. Who's the person who painted this? I forget. Hello, Ronan. Alright, so before, after. Always pay attention to your lights. Your lights will make your image amazing. You can paint light. You can paint the air if you wanted to, and its behavior and in the atmosphere. So give it a chance. Don't be coward. That ladder is unemployed, of course it needs work. Maybe window cleaning? God, add feathers floating, yes! Lotus something. Oh, okay. Thanks so much, very helpful. You're very welcome, Lotus. Thank you for posting on the group. I really appreciate when you guys share your work. I know how important it is to you. I know how valuable and close to your heart your work is. It takes lots of courage, and I appreciate that you guys post these images here. We're almost at 700 members, are we? On the community. Oops. So it's you're gonna get a critique if you post something. I'm very, very proud of you guys. So please, ooh, ooh, so pretty, so pretty. That's so nice. Is it floating? Is there water in between? Oh, I love the way you did the moon. So pretty. It's storybookish, but it's still very, very cute. If they're floating, try to show that they're in the foreground. So try to, because they're kind of hiding in the background. Is it black water in between? So you want to just show off that there's some of this light caught on the clouds, and the clouds behind these pieces are illuminated, bringing these out. Beautiful job. I love these colors. We've got some studies here. This is another piece. You did mention that the shoulders are a little bit wide, but please, yeah, shrink the shoulders. Very, very manly form. Remember, the man body, the typical shape for male form is a triangle, upside down triangle, with the mass at the top. For female, the mass is at the bottom. So you want a quick fix for female. Just make the hips wider, shoulders leaner or smaller. We did this, but please join this group. Thank you everyone for posting your stuff, and bye bye everyone. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a great day. Bye bye.